As we were discussing, in terms of the heter מכירה, if a non-Jew purchases land near Israel, does it eliminate the sanctity of the land? Does it allow work to be done in this land on Shmita? Does it, during other years of the Shmita cycle, does it eliminate the obligation in Trumas Meisers? One thing as a background to this that I have to say is there's something called Gemar Malacha. That is, once I'm finished processing the food and it's ready to be used. What Gemar Malacha is for different things is different. In terms of grain, it's when I make a nice pile out of the grain. No one does this today. I would assume it would be putting it in the truck to be driven off the field or something like that today. But if, in general, during non-Shmita years, I buy produce from a non-Jew that's grown in Eretz Israel, and I, the Jew, do Gemar Malacha, then it's liable in Trumas Meisers. So the question is, what is the nature of non-Jewish produce in the Shmita year where the Jew does Gemar Malacha? Is it viewed as produce from that's exempt from Shmita, or do I have to separate Trumas Meisers from it? Do I not have to separate Trumas Meisers? What's the status of this? So we left off last time saying that there was a debate between the Mabit and the Bais Yosef. Remember, the Mabit sat on the Bais Yosef's based in Sfas. And the Mabit is asked in his Shailas and Shuvas, Nishal מעמדי al Inyan גידול שנת השמיטה בקרקע גוי. ולקח ישראל קודם מירוח ומירח. I was asked about what produce of the Shmita year that was grown by a non-Jew, and a Jew buys it before miruach, before Gemar Malacha, before it's finished, and the Jew does the Gemar Malacha. Im Chayvi במעשרות, כשאר shanim, שמעשרי הלקוח. Is it like the rest of the years where someone הלקוח מן הגוי ונתמרח ביד ישראל, that the Jew who purchases produce from the non-Jew and does the Gemar Malacha, that he has to separate Trumas and Meisers from it? Kevan shem einam mafkirim sadosehem b'shnas Shmita, because they do not declare their fields ownerless in the Shmita year. Or Dilma, or perhaps Kevan shem mitzvah shvi's chovas karka liYisrael be'eretz Yisrael. Or maybe because the mitzvah of Shmita is dependent upon, as an obligation of Jews in relationship to Eretz Yisrael, ein ba chiyuv meisers klal. There is no obligation to separate Trumas and Meisers at all. Vaisa lehem tshuvasi, and this was my response. Ki ein shim chiyuv be'eretz Yisrael b'meisers b'shnas Shmita. There is no obligation in separating tithes in the Shmita year at all. Afilu me'alokach miad goy codem miruach miruach Yisrael mikam panim. Even if a Jew buys them before the fruits, before they're finished, the vegetables, grain, whatever, and he finishes off the work of them, for several reasons. Rishona, the first, Kimina Torah ein chiyuv klal b'shnas Shmita b'meisers. First, there's no obligation in separating Trumas Meisers during the Shmita year. Dechsi b'shnas Shmita says in the Shmita year, ve'achlei avyonei amacha ve'yisera tochal chayas hasadei. And it says the poor will eat of the fruit of the land, the produce of the land, and the rest will be eaten by the wild animals. Hikish adam l'chayav. There's a connection between wild animals and man. Ma chaya ocheles min harui la shalom min hamaser. What's true of the wild animals, that they eat whatever is fitting for it without separating Trumas and Meisros b'shvius during the Shmita year. Af adam ochel min harui la shalom min hamaser b'shvius. So too, human beings eat whatever is fit for them without separating Trumas and Meisros during the Shmita year. Ve'Ramban zal, and the Ramban, alahi brisa shevesi le'el, on this brisa that I've brought above. I skipped that brisa because we're going to look at it here. Kasab Parshas Bar Sinai, Perush Rashi, when in his commentary on Chumash and Parshas Bahar, which deals with the Shmita, he quotes Rashi, Aleha v'nasan tam l'perush Rashi, and he gives an explanation for Rashi's commentary. Deshema ein kinyan l'goy be'eretz Yisrael, להפקיע t'nei shvis. Because there is no way a non-Jew can buy land in Eretz Israel to eliminate the rules of Shmita. Gazru alecha ki Yisrael ad katan shoma. Therefore, we say that his land is just like Jewish land during the Shemitah year, and just like Jewish land has no trumas meisers, so too non-Jewish land has no trumas meisers. Mashma behadya deperos goy b'shvis shenimrachu al yidei Yisrael b'turim mimaisers. It is clear from here that fruit, vegetables, grain, whatever food it is that's grown by the non-Jews in Israel, and the Jew purchases it and finishes the work of this fruit, that they are like all other peros shel Yisrael, other fruits of Israel. V'yeshlem kol dinei shvis b'biyur kedamrinan, and they have all the other halachas of Shmita, like when they're no longer available in the field, I have to take them out of my house and declare them ownerless, and so on. Kach nir le'ni daiti. This is what it appears to my humble opinion. Moshe bar Rabbi Yosef Mitirani. Moshe bar Rabbi Yosef Tirani. So, according to the Mabit, selling the land to Eretz Yisrael does not eliminate the obligation to keep these fruits as if they have, to treat these fruits with the sanctity of Shmita. In fact, this was the Pesach of Cook. Rav Cook allowed the heter Mechira, but he said the land can be worked, the malachos deraisa, the Torah prohibitions on Shmita can only be done by non-Jew, and the rabbinic prohibitions can be done by Jew in that instance. But the produce that comes from it in the end has to be treated as if it has the sanctity of Shmita, and people should keep a pach Shmita and so on. That was because he was choshesh for the opinion of the Mabit. Now, as I said, the Bais Yosef disagrees with this. In a tshuva, in Avkas Rochel, one of his two sets of shaylos and tshuvas, he said, "Va'od she'Rambam mefarish b'perek of Hilchos Truma." What the Rambam explains in the first parak of Hilchos Truma, Shema she'amru ein kinyan l'goy be'eretz Yisrael l'afkiya min hamitzos, that there is no title transferred to a non-Jew to eliminate the obligation of mitzvos in Eretz Yisrael, on mitzvos tlius baretz, the mitzvos connected to the land. Hainu l'inyan shi mechazer Yisrael v'lakol mimenu. What is this talking about? This is talking about if a Jew comes and purchases it from him. Eno kivush yachid. It's not as if an individual conquered the land. Now, to have sanctity of Eretz Yisrael, one of the things that we've discussed a little bit in the past is that it has to be conquered by Klal Yisrael. If it's not conquered by Klal Yisrael, it can't have. And this is one of the reasons given that during Bais Sheni, that Shmita was the Rabbanan, because Eretz Yisrael was conquered, and Trumas Meisers were also the Rabbanan, because Eretz Yisrael was conquered by a minority of Klal Yisrael. And therefore, since there is a fault in the kivush, therefore, there was no obligation from the Torah. So the Rambam is saying when a non-Jew owning land in Eretz Yisrael does not eliminate the obligation of mitzvahs, that is when a Jew purchases it back from him. And at that point, it's like it was never sold to a non-Jew. But as long as it's in the hands of the non-Jew, the produce from it is exempt from trumas and meisers. Only if a Jew would do miruach, would do the gemar malacha, would finish the work of it in the sorts of grain, making a pile in terms of olives. It could be pickling them or whatever. For different things that we do, different aspects. In another tshuva, so the at this point the Bais Yosef is holding that as long as the things are in the hand of the non-Jew, it's non-Jewish and it doesn't have kedusha. As soon as it comes back to Jewish control, it would have sanctity. Now, this fight between the Bais Yosef and the Mabit saying that you do not have to separate Trumas Meises from Perush Shvis, and the Bais Yosef saying if a Jew does Gemar Malacha, you would. have to separate Trumas Maasros from them. Created a fight that lasted for several Shmitos, and in the next tshuva in the Avkas Rochel, the Bais Yosef writes, Amar Yosef Karu, said Yosef Karu, Echad shekasav hacham harav Moshe Mitirani, Igeres hazos hashinis, that the Rav Moshe Tirani wrote a second letter, Ratza lasos ma'aseh k'dvarav b'shmita she'avra. He wanted to again do what he did in the previous Shmita. Umichu biyado, and they rejected it. Ub'shmita zu she shenast he shin lamed dalet, and this Shmita, which is 5,334, hiksha es rucho, he hardened his spirit. Ve'imetzas levavo, he strengthened his heart. Litkoa atzma lasos ma'aseh k'dvarav biyad ramah, and he wanted to again do what he had done in the previous Shmita and exempt everything from Trumas Maasros. V'kamu kol chachmei ha'ir, and all of the scholars of the city of Tzfas at that time, there were a huge number of Talmidei Chachamim, was the main city of learning in Eretz Yisrael at the time. Va'ainu b'dvarav harishonim v'achronim, and they looked at what he wrote in the last Shmita and what he wrote in this Shmita, v'ro she'ein behem mamash, and we have come to the conclusion there is no content that is not worthy of a psak to paskin that way. V'yichrizu b'bate knisios, and we have announced in all the shuls and tzvas, ubigzeres nidui, and with a decree of excommunication, shekulam yifreshu trumos u'maasros miperos hagoy shenimrachu b'yad Yisrael b'shvis kamo b'shar shanim, that any fruits and vegetables that the Jew does Gemar Malacha, he has to separate Trumas and Maasros from them, just like we do in all the other years. Num Hatzir Yosef Karu, affirms the young Yosef Karu. So this is, now, if you separate Trumas and Maasros, obviously the Paris don't have any Kedusha. If you say they don't have Kedusha, then it's much easier to deal with them. That's the opinion of the Bais Yosef and the majority of the scholars of Tzfas from 400 years ago. The minority opinion is of Tirani that it does have Kedusha Shvis, even though it was grown on non-Jewish land by a non-Jew. The Peyas HaShulchan, who was one of the Talmidim of the Vilna Gaon, the first of the time, one of the first of the Misnagdim that made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael in the first group, Yisrael Mishakalov, wrote the first truly modern, complete work on Mitzvahs Tluis Baretz. And there he writes as follows: Ve'ani me'es zikani elokei haaretz ve'aviani halom b'shnas tzafas. And I, from the time that I was Zocha, that the God gave me the merit of bringing me to Eretz Yisrael in the year 570, meaning 5,570, about 100 years after the debate between the Bais Yosef and the Mabit. V'nesati elibi la'ayin b'halacha zu be'eretz HaKodesh. I decided that I have to look again into this halacha when I'm in Eretz Yisrael. It's not the same learning this halacha when you're Chutz La'aretz, it's still learning it when you're in Eretz Yisrael, concerning whether produce grown by a non-Jew in Eretz Yisrael during the Shemitah year has sanctity or not. Ve'achrei iyun, and after I looked into it, Nira Baro Shehadin im Maran HaBeis Yosef. It seems clear to me that the halacha is like our rabbi, the Bais Yosef. V'ken haminhag gam ata b'kol Eretz Yisrael, and that is the minhag now in all of Eretz Yisrael. V'ken nehagu b'Yerushalayim bisman haral nach, and so too, when the Ral Nach was the Rav of Yerushalayim, that's what they did. V'halacha k'divrei hamachriya b'shel hagoyim pater b'shvish, and so the halacha is that the produce of non-Jews is exempt from the laws of Shmita, and therefore we have to separate Trumas and Maasros from it, and so on. Now, the Chazon Ish has a different way of looking at this. V'naktinan ledinan dina de'ain ovdin b'sedei nוכרי b'shvis. And we accept the halacha that you cannot do any work in the land of a non-Jew on the Shmita year. Shekenhu ikar hahara. This is the principal psak. V'nohagim kedusha shvius b'perosehem. And there is sanctity of the Shmita on all of their produce. Uma'asrin osam below bracha. And we have to separate trumas and meisers from them without saying a bracha on it. And after a long discussion, he writes, and this fact that it is well known that the Chachamim of Tzvas had a major disagreement about this. They're only talking about whether the fruit has sanctity or not. Aval charisha zriya v'shara avodos. However, the work done in the field, the kule alma ein chiluk bein oved b'karka Yisrael oved b'karka Nוכרי. There is no difference whether a Jew is working in non-Jewish land or Jewish land. Bein osei malacha d'oraisa or d'rabbanan, and there's no difference whether he does malacha from the Torah or from the rabbis. The kedushas haaretz lekule alma lo paka. The sanctity of the land, no matter how you look at it, has never been extinguished. So we will look more at the outcomes of these, but you have two basic ways of looking at the nature of what grows in non-Jewish land during the Shmita year. Either it is Perish Shvis, that's the opinion of the Mabit, or it's not, that's the opinion of the Bais Yosef. And up until our time, you have people that paskin both sides of this machlokas. Rav Kook felt l'chumra for both sides as well, as we'll see as we look more on this. Anyway, we will continue with our study next time with the laws of the Heter Mechira, of selling the land of Eretz Israel to non-Jews during the Shmita. Everyone should have a wonderful day.